Well, there's nothing like a wedding, is there? And I have to say, Della illustrates the beauty of youth. Today, on her wedding day, she is without peer. She is the most beautiful of all her equals here today. Now, Della is the youngest of 4 children, as you know, 2 older sisters. And as a result, she grew up with an advantage of seeing life unfold before her by a family that kept very few secrets. As a result, she was able to see those who met challenges, difficulties with maturity, and as she was growing out of childhood, it was all right before her. And she was able to emulate the success of her 2 older sisters. Now, each stage of life brings its own challenges and its own rewards. Della was like the wise one of the saying of old. A wise man sees the mistakes of others and learns. A normal person just makes his own mistakes and then learns. A fool never learns. Della was one who could see her sisters make their way through the academic web of university and acquire their degrees with a work ethic of consistency and faithfulness, and she followed. And she did very well. Della has a psychology degree from Concordia University.
Here, here!
So watching her family and her brother and her 2 sisters, it gave her the tools to be able to act with a maturity beyond her age to succeed. And as we see today, not only succeed by watching others, but now set a course for herself on her own, using the tools of the past. Now Riley is the oldest of his family. And as a result, whenever there were challenges, he would show the skill of one who would meet these head-on, face adversity, and act independently with courage to meet every challenge. And he succeeded. So what we have here are 2 ends of the spectrum. One who acquires knowledge firsthand from observance, another who sets a course, doesn't have the same tools, but overcomes through just patience, perseverance, and ability. Now when you think of it, we live in an age today where that is exactly how our culture has survived and continued. The progress we have made in science, in computer science, in technological affairs, and medical science, and so on, is incredible. The information age has given us more access and more power than seen at any other time on this earth. And how is that? We're standing on the shoulders of giants who, through lifelong application and study, built a foundation of knowledge.
Yes, sir.
Now we, as the next generation, take that knowledge, we apply it, we learn from it, and build on it to leave a legacy for the next generation.
Yeah.
That is how life works. Now, each generation has their successes, and each generation has their different challenges. This generation that we're living in today has plenty of both. Yes, we have great successes. It's amazing what we can do today, the communication that we have. We're going to talk about that for a minute. We live in an age of communication where you can get out what you're feeling and what you're thinking, and it could be available for millions to look at instantly. Now, as a result, that has had, it can be gratifying in the sense that truth can get out there, and we can see the truth around the world as it's happening. But it can also be very dangerous and toxic. in that it can be the spread of disinformation, which can bring in all kinds of difficulties and often form relationships that are not authentic. For example, if you want to get angry about misinformation, just join Facebook. If you want to show off, join TikTok. If you want to get envious, try Instagram. If you want to keep a secret, but you still want to get out there, do Snapchat. And if you want the maximum number of total strangers to be somehow in touch with you, just join them all. What we have here is, along with the technology and the science, we have communication which is defiling and degrading. Now, we're going to go back to our science and what we were talking about a minute ago. Our life today is underwritten by truth, and we see that in nature. There are things that are beyond our control that we need to happen every day for us just to begin, such as the sun has to rise every morning. The earth has to bring forth her fruit every harvest. We have to see the times and the seasons change as they do. Gravity must remain continually as it is. What we have here are things that are faithful, unchanging, without nuance, without context, that will remain, and as long as they remain, our lives have possibility to continue on. You take any of these away, and there's nothing left. Life cannot continue. The same with a relationship, as we were hearing from Chris. A relationship that is going to last is a relationship when a man and a woman look at each other and say, "My love for you is unconditional." It will not change. It will remain as it is forever, come what may. And in that context, a house can be built, and not only is it a place of encouragement and nourishment, but it's a shelter. Because out in the world, it's getting crazy. And it's dangerous. And if you believe everything you hear out there, it will just make a mess of your mind. The home is a place where there's unconditional love and support, where you can protect your child. And you can say, this is the truth. This is what you heard, but this is the truth. The truth is unchanging, just as the sun rises every morning, and the gravity keeps us, and the earth yields her harvest every year. So is love, and so is the work of a faithful Creator, of which all four of my children, and my generation, and my father's generation, all learned, and that is the faithfulness of a life-giving God. When you look at your family, you must understand it can only succeed and continue to prosper when the solid foundation is love. And with that love, you know I'm there for you. That's how marriage works. No matter what kind of day you have.
Right. That's right.
When you come home from a day where there's been nothing but heartache and stress and difficulty, and you have your husband or your wife there, and you know, a shelter at last. Here's someone who's there for me unconditionally, no matter what. On that basis, there is a solid foundation. And on that basis, children can be born and raised up in a stable environment. And all these things point to love being the strength and the support of all living creatures, all living beings, all living humans. How's that? Children are only brought into this world through the coming together of a man and woman. Yes, sex is about having babies. When children are born out of love, in the highest expression between a man and a woman, that is a great foundation for that child. Children always get a loving welcome into this world. And as a result, raised in that environment, we're told in the scriptures that God is love. And every time a man loves his wife, he's showing a little of God. When a woman loves her husband, she's showing a little of God. Love your baby, you're showing the love of God. Whosoever loveth is born of God, for God is love. So, having learned and being taught from your childhood the faithfulness of God, unchanging love that nourishes us and gives us health, the sunrise every morning, our health, all things freely given. Let's return it by loving one another, loving our family, loving our husbands, loving our wives, loving our children. And in the end, we will leave a legacy for the next generation. It's no secret that marriages that work will have children that their marriages will work too. And it goes on and on. They learn from each other. I'm going to end with a story. I know I've already gone over my time. I'm going to end with a story that illustrates this point. This is a true story. Back in the days when the English and the French were fighting wars, there was a high-ranking British diplomat, and he fell in love with a French girl. And they warned him, don't marry her because we're at war, and if anything happens, you could be accused, or she could be accused of spying or perjury, or what's the word? When you... Treason. Thank you. Something might happen, you or her might be charged with treason, and in those days the penalty was death. His love for her was so great that he said, I'm going to take the chance, I'm going to marry her anyway. So they married. Years later, when the war heated up, they found something and they decided that she had committed treason against the British forces because he was a high-ranking officer. So she was tried and they found her guilty of treason. And in those days, the penalty was death. She was brought before the king, and her husband was there. And the king looked over the evidence and said, I must sentence you to death. At that point, her husband came running out, and he collapsed before the judge, and he said, Oh, your highness, let the penalty fall on me. Let me die. Let me be the one who is hanged and not my wife. Please let her live. Gladly I will die for her. The king was in shock. He just looked, couldn't believe what he had seen. And he said, with such a manifestation of love before me, what can I possibly do but pardon this woman? So he granted her an immediate full pardon. As they were walking out, she turned to her husband and said, did you see the look on the king's face when you were telling him that you were willing to die for me? He said that to her. Did you see the look on the king's face?